Intro. Hi, from a park. I'm here with Chicken Butt, of course. I am back in Warsaw, so the book content will be recorded from here. On to the reading vlog. Last month I read exclusively historical fiction and mostly romance as well, for some reason. Maybe that had to do with the exams that took place. So I reread 3 Jane Austen books: Northanger Abbey, Mansfield Park, and Persuasions. I love Persuasions. It's my favorite apart from Pride and Prejudice. So that didn't change. I still love it. My thoughts did not change. But I did have some thoughts on Northanger Abbey and Mansfield Park. I usually avoid Northanger Abbey because I get so embarrassed for the main character. I won't tell you for what, but she does some pretty embarrassing stuff. But she's also one of the youngest Jane Austen protagonists. I think she's like 17. At the same time, she's the youngest, but she's also, I think, the most assertive. And that's something that I really enjoy, just spending time with this, well, spunky teenager, you know? I don't really, you know how you sometimes see yourself through characters? So there is something that I relate to in most of Jane Austen protagonists, but the protagonist of Northanger Abbey is just not one of them. And as to Mansfield Park, what I really thought about the most was the fact that while I really like Fanny Price, I'm one of those people, I think that she would make a poor partner and a friend for me. I think while I enjoy her on the page of the book, in real life I would find her so exhausting because Fanny is the type of person who doesn't really communicate. I wanted to utilize that she uses like indirect communication, but she also just keeps everything inside. She doesn't really tell anyone anything that's going on. So if you were to be her friend or her partner, then you would, for example, say that you love cinema and Fanny can take it or leave it. Because sometimes she gets those terrible migraines, but because she doesn't want to hurt your feelings, she will never in her life tell you that she has a migraine, and she won't resent you for taking her to the cinema even though she has a migraine. But it is implied in the book that the good way to be a friend to Fanny Price is to essentially observe her state at all hours of every day and just draw your own conclusions and make sure that she's well taken care of. And that have worked in the Regency period, but I would expect communication from somebody in this day and age. And apart from that, I read a historical trilogy, in general some K.J. Charles books, Sins of the Cities trilogy on audiobook while I was hogging wood. Oi, oi, oi. So, K.J. Charles, it's a romance series, and it's very much this made by women for women, male romance. It kind of feels like that. I feel that the K.J. Charles, who's a woman, I checked, does her best to represent and give her character depth. And in general, the series is, I thought that it would be just exclusively romance, but each book has a romantic plot, but also equally as important a crime, plot thread, and one like general crime undertone that spans the whole series. So there is a mini crime which pertains to the bigger crime resolved in the 3rd book. And I felt that the romance was, well, it was not slow burn, which I need to like a romance. I need time to pass, and they all just got together rather quickly, which I don't feel is a spoiler because the type of romance it is just, you know, that's tropes. You want to know it before you start. So look what I got. Hold on. Ooh. Not much attention was actually paid to the relationship. There were like, you know, just not enough is my point, but the author made a point to include sex scenes in the book, which I don't mind, but I thought that they were unearned. And I think that if you're a woman writing male-male romance, you kind of have to make sure you do the relationship justice. There should be enough backstory, but then again, everybody can judge for themselves. But that's kind of just, bugged me a little bit. And my favorite book of the series, I think, was actually the middle one. I will just include titles while I talk about books, because I don't remember which one was which. The second one, which was very much enemies to lovers. I don't know, it was interesting. Though I really disliked this dynamic, I felt that both characters were interesting enough for me to actually like the book. The first one I did not enjoy and actually gave up on it like 2 years ago, I think. I started reading it and I didn't really like it. I just read it because I already read the book 2 and 3, and I started with book 3, which it is not technically a gay romance, I suppose, because one of the characters is non-binary, though it is not stated in such terms in the book, but I believe that's justified and necessary to make it more realistic, because that's not a term that would be used in Victorian England. And I checked, and those books take place in Victorian era. In general, I think K.J. Charles's books are good enough. I would rate each of them 3 stars, plus minus half a star, but I feel that she could do a little bit more to like describe the chemistry between the characters, I think. Also, in critiquing K.J. Charles or writing gay fiction for women, I have no leg to stand on. I just read it. I read multiple books. The reason why I even listened to the whole K.J. Charles series is that it was recommended included in Audible Plus catalog, So I thought that I don't know, I'll just click it, especially since I didn't like one, and I thought that if the book would make me angry, maybe just carrying the wood would get easier, because I would be fueled by my spite. But the book wasn't bad enough, it was okay. And in contrast, I also read The Binding by Bridget Collins, which I mentioned in one of my vlogs. It's a fantasy book, and I thought that I'm going to kind of slightly spoil one part of the book out of 3, but only in the sense that I was not told what this book is, and I feel like knowing what kind of genre I'm really reading is something that you want to know before you start a book. But if you don't want to know anything about the book, I give it like 3.5 or 4 stars for sure. So the book is also a romance between 2 men. It's a fantasy setting, vaguely historical, but I would think it's inspired by like Regency or Victorian era, but that's also the two most common epochs, or time periods, which are back to back in history in England, so it doesn't really matter since it's fantasy, The book was on another level though. I felt like she was aiming in the direction of Jane Austen, not saying that she's as good, but she was aiming to tell a story where romance plays a big part, but it's not just a romance book. It definitely deserves to be put in literary fiction, And I love the concept behind the binding process, which is a kind of magic placed in the book. I'm not going to tell you how it works because it is important, and that would be a complete spoiler. And my point is that she, I feel, does a better job of handling the relationship. I don't know, it's very hard for me to verbalize why I think that, but just I guess it kind of boils down to the earning of sex scenes between the characters. In K.J. Charles's books, they are written for titillating women and for their enjoyment, I guess. Yeah, so let me just review this book as a story other than romance. I think it was it was good. I really loved the prose. in the book. However, I think that since the main character is just definitely not gentry, he's like from a small village, what would you call that kind of person? I can't think of a word. And the narration is in first person, and somehow it's a very literary language. Like, if you make your character a narrator and he's from a small town and didn't have any formal education, is just literate but is not allowed to read books, you cannot use this kind of flowery prose. Or you can, but it is inconsistent to what we know of the character. Look how red my hands are, by the way. Because I lost my gloves. So yeah, narration. Also, it's funny because the book could contain a trigger warning for all these things. Like, the only thing that you don't need to be warned for, like, the book doesn't contain scary bugs, which I think is a trigger warning. So my point is, there's a lot happening in the book, but the author shies away from the sex scenes. There is not a single sex scene in the book described even in like a mature rating. There is not like a cutaway. It's like it's talked about, they just kiss and then there is a cutaway. And I've never heard this before, where the book actually lacked a sex scene. I think there should have been at least two. One which was when the characters meet in a specific set of circumstances, and one which was a first time. I think those just had to be there because it is said outright that their physical connection was very important to them having a relationship. To like their relationship was very physical. That's how they conveyed a lot. They didn't really speak too much at the beginning. So I think that they should have been there, but I understand that maybe because the author was just not comfortable writing them, or she didn't want to be accused of fetishizing the male characters in her book. But I felt that they would have been warranted and necessary. But then again, as a woman writing about men, she could have been accused, you know, of the thing that I said Cager Charles did, which is, you know, fetishizing. Apart from that, there were certain inconsistencies, like poor people in a village having a heavily patterned, I think, like comforters on the bed, which is not really a thing that people did because of the lack of funds, or people in the country wearing boned corsets and stuff like that. But then again, it's a fantasy settings. Also, there was this fun thing where the book was translated from English, and when the book is translated, on the back burner, I keep having like an inner monologue about what is translated and what was the original thing. For example, there is a dog which is called Spring, like the item in Polish version. But I was like, I thought maybe that since the characters don't give the dogs original names, maybe that's just a Springer Spaniel, but it's outright said that the dog is a terrier, so it must have been named Spring. Therefore, why did the translator choose Spring as an item instead of Spring as a season? I think Spring as a season is a prettier name. Oh, I remember also a weird thing where the narrator, first person narrator, said that the fire or the light was reflecting in my eyes, and I was like, how do you know that? How do you know what's in your eyes? There is no mirror. You're peeling potatoes, but not like over a basin of water. So I don't know. It was the most I've been focused on a book since Digital Fortress this year, but not because I disliked it. There were just some things that were weird in the book, and like, you know, kept kind of prodding them like you would if you had like a hole in your tooth, just like, oh, it causes me slight discomfort, but I can't stop. But still, I think the book was good. The concept was interesting. So, did I say 4 stars? I'd say 3.5 stars. That's how much the book I would give to the book. I hope I addressed all my points and that you liked this video. And if you did, please like or comment or subscribe or whatever. All my social media and also my dog's very homely Instagram are linked in the description box. Thanks for hanging out with me and see you soon, I hope. Bye bye.